Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. And so this is a kind of a crazy story out of Scotland. You want to hear what happened? This is real. There's a rape crisis center, and the head of it was a trans woman, so a biological male. And here's how they reported it in Scotland.
The charity Rape Crisis Scotland has said it will pause the referral of rape survivors to a support service in Edinburgh after a review found the centre had failed to protect women-only spaces. The independent report into Edinburgh Rape Crisis found that it did not put survivors first and that the chief executive, a trans woman, failed to behave professionally or understand the limits of her authority. A reporter in Edinburgh, Joanne Macaulay, has the story.
In May, Ros Adams, who worked at the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre, won a constructive dismissal case against her former employers. She said she'd been unfairly treated for believing that people using the support service should know the sex of their support worker.
So at a rape crisis center, that woman said the victims of rape should know the gender of the person working with them. And so she got fired for that by a transgendered person who was leading that rape crisis center. You think I'll play that again, just in case you missed it? That person there.
She said she'd been unfairly treated for believing that people using the support service should know the sex of their support worker. The tribunal found that the chief executive at the time, Mridul Wadhwa, who's a trans woman, had conducted what was described as a heresy hunt against Ros Adams and appeared to believe she was transphobic. The tribunal ruled in Ros Adams' favour.
Sexual violence is about bodies, and sexual violence is perpetrated by 98 to 99% male people. So male-bodied male people who have been socialised as male, and so we need to respect that when people are traumatised by that, their senses are highly, highly alert to the person in front of them.
After the tribunal, Rape Crisis Scotland ordered an independent inquiry into how the Edinburgh Centre had been run. Its conclusions were published today, and it found that Edinburgh Rape Crisis failed to put survivors first, failed to protect women-only spaces. The chief executive failed to behave professionally or understand the limits of authority, and the actions of some staff had a detrimental impact on some women. Rape Crisis Scotland says it's paused referrals to the Edinburgh Centre, although people can still self-refer. In a statement, Rape Crisis Scotland said it was extremely concerned that the Edinburgh Centre had failed to provide women-only spaces and that the needs of survivors should be respected at every rape crisis centre. Edinburgh Rape Crisis say they recognise they got things wrong and they're sorry, and they're committed to implementing the recommendations of the report. Joanne Macaulay reporting, Scotland, Edinburgh.
And so here it is. This is from the Times. Trans boss of Rape Crisis Center quits after damning criticism. In a statement, ERCC said, Mridul Wadhwa, and the board have decided that the time is right for a change of leadership at the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Center. You mean you get the biological male out? At a rape crisis center?
Oh my God.
A biological male.
I don't feel safe anymore.
I had a sister who had to go to a counseling center for abused women, and she was going through a hard time, and she wasn't mentally stable, and so my two brothers and I had to go get her for some reason, and we found out, oh, where is she? So she's there. So they flipped out. We were not allowed to even walk in the building. We were males. They're like, no, get there. We walked in. They're like, get those. You're not allowed at a crisis center for battered women. And there they have biological males, and then they're having biological males take care of raped women. What in the F? So Wadhwa, who identifies as a trans woman, was put on leave in May after an employment tribunal found that she had presided over an investigation that should not have been launched in the first place. They found it was designed to force out a member of staff who held gender-critical views.
Oh.
The report highlighted that under Wadwa, ERCC lacked focus on the core requirements of a rape crisis center. Really? Somebody with a penis didn't focus on the core requirements of a rape. Isn't that weird? During her research, Ling asked the ERCC for further information on the woman-only services it provided, but was told that there were very little demand for them. It emerged that for a 16-month period until February of this year, there were no protected women-only spaces available through the ERCC unless they were specifically requested. Ling said putting women in the position of having to discuss whether the service they receive will be provided by someone who was born and continues to identify as a female has caused damage and does not amount to the provision of protected women-only spaces. The report also questioned the values adopted by ERCC, which were not fully consistent with national service standards. Accepted criteria such as survivor-centered, trauma-informed, and gender-informed were augmented by two new approaches, loving and brave. These innovations were not best practices, said Ling, and appeared both inappropriate and to raise boundary issues when used in the context of survivors of gender-based violence. The report was commissioned earlier this year as details of Wadwa's impact emerged during the tribunal in which Roz Adams, a former ERCC counselor, won her case for constructive dismissal and discrimination. She was hounded by her employers after expressing sympathy with the victim's wish to have only female counselors. Under Wadwa, ERCC's internal inquiry was reminiscent of the work of Franz Kafka, according to Ian McFattridge, the employment judge. Many critics see the ERCC crisis as the result of trans-inclusive policies pursued when Nicola Sturgeon was First Minister, which they say were promoted by government-funded organizations such as Rape Crisis Scotland. Joanne Cherry, the former MP and a critic of gender ideology, said the report showed that Wadwa failed to set professional standards of behavior and should resign or be dismissed without further delay. Today, this is now J.K. Rowling weighed in on this. She said, today has seen the publication of a damning report into the culture of the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Center under CEO Midrol Wadwa, a man who identifies as a woman. That's according to J.K. Rowling. I think it's a woman. J.K. Rowling says, it was because I knew sexual assault victims were self-excluding from the only rape support center in my home city that I founded and fund Bear's Place, a woman-only service for female survivors of sexual assault in Edinburgh and Lothian. Responding to Ling's report, Rape Crisis Scotland said today, it is important that survivors can make informed choices about the services they access at rape crisis centers, and we recognize that for some survivors, this includes the choice of single-sex service. Yet Edinburgh Rape Crisis has never referred a woman in search of single-sex service to Bear's Place, and was found to have constructively dismissed support worker Roz Adams for believing that service users have the right to know the sex of the staff. A staff Slack conversation about Bear's Place came to light during Roz's tribunal. The opening of a new single-sex center was described by one employee as really terrible news and a festive stinker. This is the culture that trans woman created at a crisis center for rape victims. J.K. Rowling says, umbrella organization Rape Crisis Scotland claims to have been in ignorance of the Edinburgh Centre's failings. As for Woman Scott says below, this is nonsense. They were warned, yet they supported the trans woman and his ideology throughout his tenure. That's her pronouns, not mine. Chief Executive Sandy Brindley appears to have been fine with Wadwa's publicly expressed views that female survivors are bigots if they don't want to share spaces with trans-identified men, and that the best way to deal with gender-critical staff is to fire them. There it is. There are many more of us who think you are an amazing sister, mother, and warrior for women's rights. It's the opposite of women's rights. It's misogyny. That's dismissing women's rights in favor of a biological male's rights. Love to you. So that's what she pointed out. She also says Wadwa remained in a post even after the Edinburgh Center allowed a man now convicted of serious sexual assault who the judge said harbors hostility towards women to access a space supposedly reserved for traumatized female survivors. So they let us male sexual assaulter access someplace. Here's the last slide. Some might have expected the chief exec and her amazing sister to resign today, but no, the government continues to fund a service dominated by ideologues. Vulnerable women have been denied help, and Brindley and Wadwa continue to draw their salaries. So that was September 12, 2024, and those are her pronouns, not mine. I certainly think that Wadwa is a female lady. Now you're a lady. Right? As far as I can tell, I mean, I don't want to misgender you, but you look like a lady.
I mean, I used to joke to my kids. I was like, babe, I was the they them before there was a motherfucking they them, because I always called myself an actor. I always thought I was a boy, but I loved that I was who I was. But when you're a kid and growing up and confused and you don't fucking know who you are, don't start pressing ideologies into kids' heads. They need to just grow up and be what they are. I have a lot of weird thoughts about all this because I've never really spoken about it, and I don't know this story. But it's like every time I tried to even wrap my head around it, something would emerge like, oh, my daughter's best friend, the mom would be like out of nowhere, this kid is trans. Like I all kinds of weird things were coming at me. I'm like, I'm meant to deal with this somehow. So how am I going to deal with this? But I think the more, and I have so many gay friends, and we had wild fucking incredible times, and I'm still just trying to understand. I know that they wanted to divide the entire world in every which way they could. I'm trying to understand why this ideology? Why did this have to emerge? What was the point of this one? Trans. It's not gay rights. It's not gay marriage, which I think is fucking awesome. This is something so different, and to do it at a level of like kindergarten, like the whole play for it when we were in COVID, when we came out of COVID, it was like from chaos to chaos. It was such a chaotic topic. Like that's even following that story with you just now. I don't even know what's going on because I can't figure out who's a man, who's a woman. I'm just so lost and I feel so old. I'm just like, what the fuck has happened here? I want to understand what part of the playbook. I want to understand what the words were, how they described this when they created this, because this was part of the playbook. What was it? What do you think?
I don't know, but I think I know where it comes from. It comes from BlackRock, Vanguard.
Oh, 100%.
So
what's behind it?
It's their way to divide and keep people and create
trans?
chaos.
You can do a billion things. Why trans?
And it's also a way for them to wrap themselves in a patina of virtue while they rape the planet. And I think it has something to do with the transhuman thing symbolic. Too. That's real.
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of people talk about, I don't want to get too crazy here, but may as well, fuck it, who cares? But, when you talk about Baphomet, who's made a huge comeback these days, Baphomet is like, all these kids there's just a lot of very strange, I don't want to say too much because this is one of the ones I stay away from, but I start thinking about kids. I start thinking about my kids and what would I want for my daughter. And if my daughter came to me and she said, I don't feel like I'm a girl, I'm a boy. And I have people that have said to me, well, it's better to have a dead,
alive.
yeah, that whole thing. And it's like, yeah, well, I want to deal with this at home, and I'm going to deal with this with my kid, and she's going through puberty right now. So if she tells me she can't go through puberty or I'll kill myself, because I've heard people have said such things, I'd be like, I'm going to sit here with you until you go through puberty, and we're going to talk every fucking day, and we're going to get through this. And then if you decide by the time you're 18, 19, 20 that this is still not the body you want to be in, then we'll figure it out. You'll figure out what you want to do. I'm never going to hold you back from doing what you want to do. But you're 12. I don't give a fuck what your friend's doing. I was like, you're going to do what goes on in this fucking house, and that's talk it out, figure it out. Because it's the same thing if I was an addict when I was a kid. So if my mother would have been like, honey, I'll get you the heroin. It's fine. What kind of mother would she be? Mommy, I don't feel good in this body. Ma, I feel fucked up. I feel weird. I got to take heroin to feel better. She would have been like, yes, let's go to the store and get you a bundle of heroin and let's get this thing rocking and rolling so you can feel better, baby. No, that's not how it fucking works. We're going to do a podcast on Saturday with a tattoo artist, and my daughter is an amazing artist, and she's going to be designing the tattoo and doing all this stuff. And I said, I promised her at 16 I could give her she could have a tiny tattoo that represents balance, so that every time she looks at it, she remembers that mommy said, maintain balance no matter where you are. It's always about balance. And even with the trans movement, even with all of these social issues, it's about balance, I feel like. And everything's just tipped so far over. But he said, I can't give her a tattoo. And I said, why not? I'm the mom. I'm with her. There's consent. And he said, no, it's illegal in the state of California. They can call child services on me. I said, I'm sorry. She's allowed to get her own therapist without me knowing. She's allowed. I'm not allowed to have access to her medical records at this stage. So why is she not allowed to get a tattoo if I'm sitting there? And that's the way it is.
So the liberals in California passed a law that you can't get a tattoo until you're 18.
Is that real? That happened?
That's real, but that's back when they used to care about protecting kids, and now
you can't get a tan.
You can't go to a tanning bed.
Really?
You can't go to a tanning bed.
You guys know all the shit.
Did you know that you can't go to a tanning bed? But apparently you can go on,
blockers,
hormones, which are sterilization drugs.
Yeah, I mean, my 13-year-old comes home right now, and he is a raging lunatic right now, and I'm like, can you imagine if I would put a child on meds in this house? What the fuck would happen? Like, they would go bananas. Like, they're meant to lose their minds right now. It's part of the process, man. They need to lose their minds and be in a safe environment to do it. And to, not that every kid has a safe environment, and that I understand, but I feel like they need to go through the natural process before they make any crazy decisions for themselves. Kids can't make decisions for themselves. They're wild animals.
How old do you have to be to get a tattoo in California? You have to be at least 18 years old.
Yeah, he told me. The tattoo artist told me. He's like, I can't do it. So instead, she's going to tattoo me. We're going to give her the gun.
Hey, come see us live. We're doing our Rumble Time show September 27th in Los Angeles. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, and we'll be in Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.